Hard to tell. I think it's on.
Hello. Here we are, Kate and Brent sitting in the office staring at a small green dot, which hopefully are some of you. So this is a super relaxed, probably an hour, and the idea is honestly to allow you to ask as many questions as possible. So just so people are kind of aware of the setup, we've got two screens in front of us and a laptop, so we can monitor the chat. So if you feel like we're kind of looking left, right, that's why. We have got some slides to take you through, more to enable you to actually see some behind the scenes and actually where the lights are and everything. If whilst we're going through that, you've got any questions, honestly just ask them there and then, because it's probably more relevant for us to answer them. Otherwise, obviously, we'll leave quite a lot of time at the end to be able to go through some questions.
Yeah, so we can see the chat coming up. Hi, Sam.
Okay, great. All working. So, for those of you who don't know us at all, give you a really brief kind of background. I'm Kate and this is Brent, and we are a husband and wife team, and we have been working together now for about 8 years.
Yeah.
I've been a photographer professionally for about 13, and it's actually Brent that introduced video work to me, and I now do both, which we'll talk about a wee bit more, as does Brent. So together we actually run almost a number of companies now. So historically there was Kate Hope Smith Photography, which started out very much as a lifestyle business for kind of weddings and portraits, and I now shoot an enormous amount of boudoir photography under that, and I also use the lights for boudoir, and they're absolutely fantastic. Together we very much run Photography, Film and Air by Lumiere, and that is now just a wedding business, and there's actually 4 of us. So Brent and I set this up together, but we work really closely with another couple called Liz and Mark, who are also Sony and also Rotolight, and we'll kind of talk through that in a wee bit.
And also a married couple.
Yes, and they're shooting a wedding with us again tomorrow at Ashridge, which a lot of the work you'll see tonight is from the venue, largely because it is a venue we shoot a lot, but also it's a historic dark building which we seem to have become specialists in. And we are both, Brent and I, both Sony European imaging ambassadors for weddings, Brent for video and me for photography. And then finally, and this is really new for us, we are soon to be launching a new visual content agency called Create, which again with Liz and Mark, and will be much more commercially focused, and that's where all our food, videography and photography will find a home. So that is us in the sense of what we represent and what we do. So we will give you, and in terms of Rotolight, then we definitely use Rotolight for everything that we shoot without question, but this particular stream, chat, whatever you want to call it, Q&A is absolutely about wedding lighting, although again, to be honest, whilst every discipline has its own specialisms, we use the lights in a very similar way across all disciplines. So what's relevant to this is relevant to everything. If we were to describe the kind of weddings that we now shoot, it's definitely, pleased to say, on the very much on the luxury end, and we would describe ourselves as hybrid shooters. And the term hybrid is very much, I think, more of an industry thing than our clients. I don't think it would mean anything to them. But it's certainly, since Brent's joined me, and let's say full-time filming for 5 years, I think the last 2 years have seen a huge uptake in video work, and now most weddings that we shoot are both photography and filming side by side. And I think that's really important, and that's definitely part of the reason why we have made quite a major shift towards Rotolight and continuous lighting.
Yeah, and I think it's worth explaining a little bit more on when we refer to the hybrid side. There's a lot of occasions now where we're using, obviously I film in 4K. That gives me a lot of opportunity to have different focal lengths from one particular lens and across many cameras. And there's opportunities where I might be able to get a camera up somewhere high or somewhere in a place that Kate may not necessarily get to, or your second shooter get to, and we're able to take out stills from the 4K footage itself. So, you know, utilizing film to actually get some of the photographic shots that we're after.
Yeah, I mean, a wedding this year, my second shooter that was booked, which was not Liz, phoned me the night, well, I think it was 24 hours before wedding, saying she had COVID. And I tried all my seconds and no one was available. And actually I did it on my own because there were 2 videographers shooting 4K, and I took stills out. And I was very open with the bride and groom that I was doing that, and it was fine. So Brent's basically said what we view as hybrid is that we're both switching from stills to video at the touch of a button, but we still go in as a specialist team in the sense that I would lead the photography and Brent would lead the filming. But there are definitely times now where he'll say to me, can you just take a few clips of X, and I'll do the same. So that's what we mean by hybrid shooting. Okay, so I started out on DSLR as a Nikon shooter, and Brent was also on DSLR. I just want to say to Kenneth, we're definitely going to help you there. Okay, so keep watching. And we were both obviously using Nikon. Brent was wanting to film, and he was filming on Nikon originally and just found it really quite frustrating because this was the DSLR days. And it was actually very much Brent's impetus to evolve filming that meant we weren't happy, if you like, with, and it wasn't a Nikon platform, it was DSLRs. And you began to do a lot of research, and it was Brent that felt that the Sony system was offering us a single platform for everything that we were doing, although he started on you know.
Yeah, much bigger, the Pro series cameras, the ones, the FX that go on the shoulder and that sort of thing. But, you know, prior to landing on Sony and finding that as the absolute holy grail for us to do both film and photography, I really did hire all sorts of cameras across the board and use many different platforms. And it was Sony that we just fell in love with, and then I really encouraged you to try and fall in love with it too.
And I was I think initially really, you know, quite anti the thought of switching and changing a system, but you know, in a certain extent we've done the same with lighting, and we're going to talk about that. The point I want to make, which I haven't written in the presentation, is both Sony and Rotolight fundamentally make our jobs easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you that shoot weddings, you know it is high stress, no second chances, and if any kit can make your job easier, then you know what is not to love. And honestly, I think that probably is the headline. Both of them do that. Okay, so initially when I was even after shifting from the DSLR system to mirrorless, I was still using flash, and very comfortable with that and not afraid of using it, and certainly we shoot a lot of winter weddings and I was using it a lot, and that, although Brent was using lighting panels and certain LED solutions that were all quite small and portable, I literally just didn't give them a second look. They were not powerful enough for the photography side of things, and so we were kind of slightly diverging on that level. Although back then, so when I say back then, I'm talking, you know, maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we did already own one of the Neo 2s. In fact, we had a Neo 1 as well, but then we got a Neo 2, and we would take it with us. And there were definitely scenarios where it would come out, and here's one, and this is absolutely classic. This is Brent and I working side by side at weddings, which we do all the time, and he is on a gimbal there, I think, yeah. And he is hand holding a Neo. And that we'd do that sometimes, but not a lot. You know, you know, and that would be Brent saying, literally, please, can you not be using flash? Because for those videographers out there, you will fully understand and appreciate the issues that flash cause. And interestingly, when we were just shooting stills at a wedding, we didn't really give it much thought.
No.
We would pull the flash out whenever we needed it, and if there was a video team there, it sounds awful, but we kind of...
It is what it was.
It was, yeah. You know, there's historic, often problems between video and photography, different teams. As soon as you start doing this together and you're coming into clients offering both, that's just not okay. We had to sort it out. And Brent was saying it was actually ruining the aesthetic of his films, because it literally puts a rolling, you know, depending on your kind of filming shutter speed and how, you know, obviously the frequency of the flash you're firing, it can really cause a huge amount of problems. And occasionally Brent was having to take a frame out of the film, you know.
Yeah, sometimes you could take a frame out, but other time you end up with 3 or 4 frames, and it became more and more difficult to try to do that. And there's also a lot of post-production to do that. So I guess at those times, Kate and I are a little bit loggerheads, but I had to kind of go, okay, use strobe, because there wasn't a sufficient solution from my side to go, if you stop using strobe, then I'll give you enough light, I guess. And until that could take place, you still had to get your decent images using strobe at the end of the day.
Yeah, we were kind of prioritising the photography, and it came to a stage where that just wasn't gonna cut it anymore. Both were equally important as each other. And it was around that time that we actually, if you like, rediscovered Rotolight. And I think that's the thing, and we can be honest and say we hadn't maybe kept up with the huge progress that they had made and were making in the industry. And it was actually Sony that almost reintroduced us to them. And I have to say, it was when we saw the AEOS range, and this was before the Pro range that, you know, is currently just being released. It was the sheer power of that that really shocked us. You know, it's as simple as that. We were like, whoa, okay, hang on. And it has been a combination of these lights that we use. So for those of you that want to know what we have, we currently have this AEOS 2 kind of kit where, you know, you've got this bag, you've got the 2 lights, you've got the diffusion domes, and you've got a couple of stands, and obviously all of the kind of charging and everything. And then on the right we've got the Neo 3, and it's a really great little set because there are 3 of them. Obviously Rotolight have got a number of different, you know, combinations of how they put the kit together, but again it comes with a really solid carry case and the 3 stands and the diffusion domes.
Super portable for us. Just in that small box, we're able to throw that in with the rest of the kit that we take, and yeah, very easy to maneuver. And
yeah, and this has become the essential that we will take to pretty much any shoot, and we'll use it in completely different combinations, which we're going to show you. In addition to that, and again you'll see it in some of the shots, we have got because we were very used to modifying flash. So as much as softening and gridding and, you know, controlling and gelling, what we realised is that the Rotolight system did all of that, and in fact faster and with less hassle. And so we do have barn doors and grids, and we use them sometimes, you know, definitely not at every shoot, but for example, tomorrow night there are fireworks at Ashridge, and we will use probably the barn doors, and that's actually just to stop the light spill. You know, we're just controlling. So we always have them with us. We don't always use them. Okay, so we spoke to Rotolight then and said, okay, let's put these lights through their paces at a wedding, and it was actually a May wedding, and I'm saying just that because you'd be like, oh, that's almost a summer wedding, and it was a beautiful day. There was no issue with that. But Ashridge is very dark, and we're also preferred suppliers at the Bodleian and the Royal Palaces, so Kensington and the likes, and they are all Well, originally they were lit by candlelight. That's how they were built, you know, fireplaces and candles. So they're not very, very bright venues. And often, even in the middle of summer, bride and grooms want to have the group photos inside because maybe it's too bright outside or it's too windy or whatever. So Brent had a little DJI.
Yeah, a little DJI Action, one of the newer ones you could kind of hang around your neck. So it was quick and easy for me just to press record every now and then. As I was going about doing my own filming, I just pressed record and then...
So there's a tiny little clip here we're going to show you, and all we're asking you to do is get a sense of, oh, there are the lights, it's a real wedding, and kind of where they are. I just need to say hi to Ron. Hi, Ron. Okay, so that was our first, if you like, experience with the lights, and it only took one wedding for us to kind of go, okay, wow. The only time I used flash at that wedding was outside for backlight. Otherwise, we just found it easier and faster to use the Rotolights. And I think it's really important to just stress the really good combination of mirrorless and continuous, because we absolutely, and a lot of the weddings that we shoot are hugely mixed lighting conditions. In fact, the still that's still on there, the frame, it's just a classic. This is Ashridge, and there's actually natural light that comes from way up above. Then you've got a couple of these warm lanterns on the stairs. They have spotlights on some of the architecture that are white. Yeah. Then you've got these tungsten kind of LED lights down coming down the stairs. You've got these little lamps around the room, and honest to God, from one corner to the other in the Great Hall, the white balance changes. So what we do now is we take a white balance reading when a team of 4 of us are together, really across all the main parts of the day, ceremony, speeches, cake cut, and we're just shouting to each other, 3,600, and we're all dialing it in, and then we are matching the Rotolights to that exact temperature. And before I was having to judge with my flash, okay, I'm going to actually warm my, I haven't got time to run and get the gels, so I'm going to warm my white balance up because I know I'm going to cool it down by putting the white flash in. All of that kind of thinking, that brain work has gone, which I have to say is brilliant. And
it was definitely this great hall that we really, when we think about our old setup and using umbrellas and all the stuff that we had there, and when we put the AEOS 2s in play in that hall, and we had them at 40% power, just 2 of them, we were really blown away at what we were getting from them in such a small package.
Yeah, they are very powerful. So following on from us totally being converted to using Rotolight and falling in love with them and just not wanting to do shoots without them, Rotolight spoke to us and said, we spoke to them actually, and Rotolight will say this, and we said, I don't think enough of the wedding industry understand these lights, understand the capabilities of them, and understand how they can make life easier for them. And so Rotolight suggested that we try and put some content together for the industry to show them how we're using them. And so we were really lucky. We worked with Ashridge and various suppliers, and we basically spent a day running through setups to show you exactly how we use them. And it was a really full-on day. We had a lot to do. So actually, in terms of timings, it wasn't much different from a wedding. We went from one setup to the next setup to the next setup. And we've got behind the scenes stills that are in this presentation, but up there we've just shown you all of the videos that are going to be released over the next few weeks by Rotolight, and some of them are really short, because really what we're doing is we're talking you through what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then we show you the results. And I know that on the YouTube channel the backlight one's already on there.
Exactly.
But that is what's coming, although what we're going to show you now is based, a lot of it's the same, plus intermingled with a lot of real wedding work. Now, when we were interviewed by Rotolight at the end of the day, we were just chatting through working at weddings together, and this is just a clip from the interview where we've just literally cut a piece out where we start talking about when we use the lights. So we just want to show you that before we dig into a bit more detail.
Every scenario.
For us, the Rotolights come out from bridal and groom prep through to detail shots. So without question, we're going to use them for rings and jewellery and all that kind of thing. We're then lighting the Great Hall for the ceremony, signing of the register. Confetti, we didn't do confetti today, but we'll show you how we light confetti, because it's in that Great Hall in the dark. Group photos on the staircase, absolutely essential. Obviously the couple photos, and we've shown you that could be outside in golden hour and backlight. Gosh, moving into the cake cut, and sometimes dinner, often the bride and groom are sitting with their back to a window, so we might just, for the speeches, just put a bit of fill light in with them. Without question, for dancing. And then, and I think this is really important, once we get into winter weddings, which we do a lot of, and it's dark early, we really do try and do some what we call night work with a couple. And with a venue like this, we're lighting the architecture, we're using the gels, we're backlighting fountains, and we just feel like we can pick them up and literally make a decision on the spot what we're going to do next.
Oh, and don't forget fireworks. I mean, in this venue, it is absolutely stunning, but we need to be able to illuminate the bride and groom.
And again, that's where we will use grids or barn doors, where we're trying to restrict the light spill. And the fireworks are amazing, but you don't want the bride and groom in the dark. It's really important to light them to match the fireworks. If we're honest, we've pretty much listed an entire wedding day.
So we just want to say hi to Rod, who's joined from Rotolight, and what Rod doesn't know about Rotolight isn't worth knowing. So if you ever want to get really technical, he's here, or get in touch with him separately. It's really fascinating actually listening to him talk about the lights and about what's coming. Okay, so we thought it'd be useful to just, again, thinking of a wedding day, from us going in, how and when and why might we use the lights. And when we get there in the morning, it'll be the exact same tomorrow morning, we get all the kit out of the car, and the first thing we do is we set up the two AEOS on stands with the diffusion domes on, and then we normally set up one or two of the Neos again on stands with the diffusion domes on, and then we'll have one ready to be cold shoot onto a camera, or sometimes one's on a normal stand and one's on just a little table stand, because again we put them all over the place. So in terms of what Brent and I try to do at any wedding, I think our job at any wedding is to deliver beautiful, well lit and composed images from start to finish. We I see some, or historically some wedding photographers where they're strong at some parts of the day and they're weak at other parts of the day, and I've always produced albums for my wedding clients, and I think that from the start to the end it needs to be strong. And I don't know about a lot of you if you're a wedding photographer, but often how the details go in the morning kind of sets my kind of mood. I have to do a good job on the details, otherwise I'm already beginning to think, oh God, it needs to be better. So to me, the details are as important as the couple photos. It's all the same, and I think about how they're lit, how they're composed. So when we move from the bride to the groom, I'm thinking, would these images look good on an album spread together? Is the lighting similar? Blah blah blah. So that's how we work. Here the top 3 shots were actually the Western ceremony of the same couple as the shots below, which was their Sikh wedding day. So the ones above, we used 2 Rotolights, and we actually used some of their jewellery behind the rings and the earrings to just give some kind of interesting textured background. And we've actually got a Neo, at the back, pushing some light through to actually give the gold and everything a bit of texture and a bit of contrast, if you like, a bit of light and dark. And then we've got a second Neo with barn doors on, okay, on a little stand to the left hand side of the shot. And the barn doors are just to reduce the spread of the light, because it's obviously a reflective surface, and with any kind of jewellery there can be a lot of angles, and so it wasn't a complex setup, but again, we have whatever works for the photography has got to work for the filming, because both the video and the photos need to look like it's from the same family. So for the filming, it's more likely you might move the lights.
Exactly, to create a bit of movement instead of the film just looking like a still, which it would do if I had it on a tripod. It would look identical to that, I guess, because we finish it the same way. So we'll just gently move the light from either the side light or the light at the back. Just move it across the frame slightly, just so that it gives some sort of change of the reflections and some glinting coming off the rings and that sort of thing. And that's more than enough movement for detail shots like that for what I need.
What we've also done recently, there's a lot of special effects, certainly in the Pro Series that have just launched, and one of them is and there's lots. There's fire.
We used the fire one, didn't we?
Yeah, one's just got a delay from dimming, and it just comes on and off slowly, and that's brilliant. Rather than actually having to turn a dial to turn the power up and down, there's an effect that does it. So you can literally just press a button, and then the rings will appear and disappear. It's just things like that. Yeah,
and we used the fire effect on a commercial shoot for a restaurant where we were showing some autumnal food and chocolates and wine, and it actually was lovely for film to have this effect that looked like there was a fireplace to the left of where we were shooting. So it really was good.
No, it's great. And then the details below was shot 6 o'clock in the morning in pitch black. So
on a kitchen counter.
Yeah, with the left and right on a kitchen counter, and obviously her seat skirt was hung, but they are 100% lit using Rotolights, and with a warm white balance, because obviously everything's quite gold and everything. So here, now detail shots, it's not like we can say to you there is one perfect way to photograph the details, because as you go from wedding to wedding, from venue to venue, well, we try where possible to incorporate something from either the venue or their details so that it makes sense. And here this is just a kind of a big antique chest thing at Ashridge. So we actually photograph like the perfume bottles and everything over there, and it's a really dark corner of Ashridge again.
Very dark.
Very dark. So you can see we've got 2 Neos there with the diffusion domes, and both of them are on just little stands so we can move them. And we've on purpose put the light on the right hand side stronger. We weren't trying to evenly light the shoes. We were definitely doing that. And
there was a tungsten light to the left hand side of me there, which we were able to turn off. So we were just basically using the light from the Neos. And that location is actually underneath the staircase in the Great Hall. So it really is pitch.
Oh, it's very dark. It's very dark. So, I tried to do something a wee bit different with all the detail shots. So it's not, I'm not going to say this is the perfect way to put the lights. Honestly, I think you've got to look at what details you're playing with, but we only ever use the Neos for that. I think that would be a fair thing to say. Yeah. Okay, great. So bridal prep, we have used the Rotolights with anything from just adding a little bit of light to 100% lighting. Now this was on the Saturday, so last weekend, and it was actually really beautiful weather, absolutely stunning. So all of the light on the front of her is from, you can just see the edge of the window on the left there, and it was, you know, she's far enough back in the room that it was beautiful light. Now all of the lights in that room are, as ever, tungsten. They're really, really warm lights, so sometimes they're on, sometimes they're not. Brent and I actually went into that room and turned everything off. We moved the mirror so that we knew we could work with the mirror. And then I just said to him, oh, I'm just gonna, and it was like, she was coming to get into the dress, but I just said, I'm just gonna run and get a Neo, because they're already, as I said, all set up. And I picked up one which was on a little mini stand. And you can see, if you look above the mirror, there's a bit of yellow of the wall. That's actually like
there's a ledge there.
Yeah.
The ledge was big enough to basically put the little tripod with the Neo on it. And I mean, Kate said that there was tungsten light in that room. The walls are yellow and there's wood paneling all the way around, so those tungsten lights just get reflected off the yellow and the wood. So we really wanted to try and use that natural light, and by putting the Neo on this little ledge, as you know.
So you can see it's just giving that hair light and on down her arm. It's basically pulling her off the background, and it just worked. Really, it's just really nice. And obviously Brent's filming exactly the same thing. So that's just a way to say, look, you can use these lights just to do that, to give some rim light and some separation light. And when they're wearing a veil, so in the first the little behind the scenes we showed you, you'll notice there were two lights there, and one was just lighting through the veil and just giving a lot of depth, and it does add a lot of three-dimensionality. Now she's blonde. Rhiannon was blonde, but if you've got a bride with really dark hair in that kind of setting, without a separation light, you might find it just looks a bit odd, like a floating face. It could just be a bit weird. So we go from anything like adding a little bit of extra light there to the shot on the right was again the Sikh wedding where we'd started in dark, and it was just light outside. You can see over her shoulder on the right that there's a bit of natural light coming through, but the rest of the light on her is 100% from a Neo. And I think, if we had it on a stand,
one Neo on a stand,
with the dome on. And you can see there that we've obviously positioned it to the left hand side of the bride to give her that shade down her cheekbone and everything. And then the shot on the other side was when we got to the temple. I'd noticed these kind of the window panels,
just to the one side of the doors
door. And I just really liked it because obviously as an emblem it's important to the Sikh religion, but behind, so what was going on in the room behind was
just really messy.
It was there was stacked chairs and all kinds. So we grabbed an AEOS on a stand and we put it a good 3 meters behind her, and we blasted it, not blasted, it wasn't even that bright, but we just had some light coming from behind to give that light an airy feel. And then we're just using whatever available light was within the venue. So again, that was just we've just put that one in to say, you can even use them like this. I think because it's continuous and you can see it and you can turn them up and turn them down. Yeah. I honestly think you should just have a play with them.
It's a great way to get rid of rubbish in the room.
Yeah, really. So groom prep, we feel like grooms can sometimes not get enough attention. And we like to try and produce some nice kind of work with the groom. This is the room that the groom gets given at Ashridge. This makes it look nice and big. It isn't. It's a long, thin room with a window at one end that gives daylight, and then, as ever, all of the lighting in the room is tungsten. But the light is nice above his head, and then behind there's a long kind of cupboard almost, and there's a lamp on it. So we figured, right, let's use these two features and obviously the mirror. So what we're doing with the lights, and we'll show you where we put them, was to basically make one of the lights look like the lamp behind his shoulder there, because there's actually a Neo behind him, and we're just trying to incorporate, and we basically did two different setups. So this is the first setup, and it shows you what we're saying. You can see there's a window at one end where we've closed most of the natural light out just to reduce the mixed lighting effect, and we've just left enough so that we could initially work. You can see then that there is a gridded AEOS 2 Pro. So all of the lights that are shown in the Ashridge shoot are Pros, just so you all know, which if you don't know what they're adding, I honestly suggest you go and have a look or read in the press, but they are significantly brighter, you know, and we'll show you that you can now use different triggers with them and everything. But so we have gridded this, and we often grid the lights when we're working with men, because men can take a stronger, harder kind of light, if you like, and it's quite cool, and we didn't want any excess light. And then just above, if you can, so I'm trying to point and that's not going to work. If you look, Brent's obviously there on a monopod, and then I am next to him, and then behind me is a Neo 3 Pro, and it has got barn doors on. And it's actually, you can't see, but directly behind that Neo is the lamp that you can see in the photograph. And we're using that Neo with the barn doors purely as a rim light, as a hair light. That's its only job, is to basically look like that light is coming from behind. Yeah. And we had to, height wise, it is low enough to be hidden from the mirror. Yeah, because if you think about it, we don't want to see it. And then obviously the AEOS 2 Pro there on the stand is the key light, and you can, you know, get a sense of where it is. And from there we could get quite a few different images. Once we'd done that setup, we actually just moved the lights. Now I think it's probably potentially hard to see, but the AEOS 2 Pro we have actually pulled further out. Both lights are actually a good probably 60 centimeters to a meter in front of him, and they're pointing directly at each other. They are not actually, it kind of, because, you know, obviously wide angle lens, it almost looks like the AEOS 2 is pointing at him. It's actually pointing ahead of him. So we're using the lights, it's really the kind of light spill, it's that softer edge of the lighting to light him. And they, in the video when it comes out, so there's a video when we talk through all of this, you'll be able to find out the brightness levels that they were on. And basically we were going for pretty even lighting here. So whilst the AEOS 2 would have been on a lower brightness to the Neo, because obviously it's a more powerful light. And yeah, one's gridded and one's got barn doors on. So there we go. Okay, Confetti then. Tell you, Confetti has become such a breeze since we've shifted to Sony. I am amazed by the focusing system of the Sony. So basically, whether we're doing stills or video, we both just lock on using the tracking autofocus, and it doesn't miss a beat, even when you've got Confetti, like you can see, where it's full on. What we do now is, you'll see again from the behind the scenes of that first wedding, that is actually, you can just see an AEOS there. It's if you look at the second picture of the Confetti, the one on the right, you can just see the stairs in the background, and there's a flat part of the staircase before it comes down again. Imagine another staircase directly opposite.
It's mirrored in the exact same format as that staircase.
Yeah, that's where that light is, the AEOS 2, and it's pointing down. So basically we have our second shooters, so one level up on that platform, and they have an AEOS 2. And then Brent and I are on the ground, and we have a Neo. And I tend to put the Neo on camera. Just I cold shoe it onto my camera. Brent sometimes is on a gimbal, sometimes isn't. It depends. And that's one of the only times that all of us are using auto ISO, because as they're approaching from that door to us, obviously the light source is not moving, and they are, so the light effectively is getting brighter on them. And so yeah, that's probably the only time that we use auto ISO, otherwise we don't. And it works incredibly well. Now and you'll see, I suppose there was a clip of it in the interview video, but this wedding was in August. It was a beautiful day. In fact, it was so beautiful they weren't allowed to have fireworks because there was a fire risk. But still, the hall is dark. Doesn't matter whether it's sunny outside or raining outside, the Great Hall is always dark. So to light this, or to shoot this without lighting, you're just going to have a really, really high ISO.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily, really.
So Kenneth's asking, he's obviously seeing this in continuous light. Do we use them in flash mode as well?
Yes, we do. And that is coming up, where we have, so yes, we do. And I'll show you. So group and formal, couple photos again. The staircase is the main feature of Ashridge, and people can spend thousands of pounds on flowers. So often the group photos are here, and in fact all summer, that heat wave where we had stinking hot weddings, weekend after weekend, everybody wanted to have the group photos inside because it was just too much. You couldn't go outside. So just to put it into perspective, because I know some people will ask, when I'm doing the group photos, I'm normally around f5.6 because I'm quite a few meters back from them. I'm not close. I'm on a 2470, and I am on a tripod, and I'm on a tripod because of blinking. I rarely need to do a head swap, but occasionally it happens. So I'm on a tripod, and that also allows me to be a 100th of a second. So I'm not worried about that slightly slower shutter speed. And even then, with the Rotolight doing a huge amount of work, I could be up at 1600 or 2000 ISO. So you've really got to just take that on board, because that's with the Rotolights putting that's two AEOSes, putting a huge amount of light into that hall. And if you want to really see how dramatic it is, again, I think there's some clips on the Instagram account of us turning the lights on and off for the Ashridge shoot. Even then, because of your greater depth of field with group photos, I honestly don't know how anybody could shoot Ashridge without lighting. Yeah.
It's definitely worth saying as well, in this particular setup, historically Kate would have umbrellas and using flash. That was a lot of hard work for me to actually get any kind of decent footage in film, and so I tended not to do the group photos so much, rather pick them off in bits and pieces, perhaps outside, or get them gathered together and get that on film rather than doing this particular setup. But in having them as continuous lights, I've created a way that I like to incorporate actually all their group shots in a really fun way into the film, and I can do so now because it's continuous.
Yeah.
But historically, I couldn't do that.
Just realised what time it is. I'm going to belt on through, otherwise you'll no time for questions. Here we are now. This was when it was October, so it was beginning to get into losing light very early, and whilst there was light, it was just a bit dull. So this is a classic way to just use the Rotolights for a bit of additional fill light. And you can see there's just two AEOSes, and we've both got diffusion domes on, and that's how we tend to position the lights, one on either side. We're working away, and it just gives beautiful skin and some catch lights in the eyes.
You also had the trigger on, so
not there though.
Okay,
it's coming. Right. Backlight. This summer there's been a lot of it, and that would always be, I'm one for always wanting to put some form of fill in, whether historically that might have been just a reflector or always flash. And this is probably where I would have said, are the Rotolights powerful enough to work, to be used outside and to deal with backlight? That was my big question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they are. So this was on Saturday, and we'll show you two AEOSs out with us because we're filming and doing videography. And there you go. That's where they are. Position, they're both 100%, and it was very bright. You know, the light was very low in the sky, and I didn't use flash there because we were filming and shooting stills, but next one I'll show you here. So absolutely, basically same scenario. It was similar time of day, very low light in the sky. Now, technically you could say you don't need to use any fill light, but I honestly feel that skin tone suffers in backlight if you don't. And flash wouldn't work for film at all. But so Brent gets his stuff, and then I had a Godox trigger on here, and you know, you get a significant extra punch of light in flash mode. And of course the recycle time is so fast, you can work very quickly. There's no delay, there's no drop in power. For those of you who've worked with strobes before, to prevent overheating, you know, it can often send out different power of light. There's none of that. It works. You know, the lights do have to be quite close. I do, well, dependent on if it's daylight. Obviously working at night would be entirely different, but it gave a real crispness to the images. I was really surprised. You know, yes, it works. I hope that does answer your question, Kenneth. But you can definitely use them in both. And of course, we were here, and there is a video showing this setup. We had the lights set to a slightly warm Kelvin to match that golden hour, but you can of course use the flash mode in any of the RGB colors, of which there are thousands. So you could get really quite creative as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll leave them in continuous when we're both doing film and stills, but and then there are plenty of times when we're just doing stills, in which case, you know, we will be triggering them, which
just for the extra power.
Exactly. With the no recycle time, it means we can actually share.
Yeah. Room reveal. So think in this room, if you can see, directly opposite to where the bride and groom are, there's a big window, and then there's a huge window. If you're looking at the bride and groom coming in, there are windows to the left. So there are no windows on, obviously, where they are, and there's no windows to the right. So actually, whilst it looks all light and airy, there's a very dominant light source from one side, which isn't great for the photo. So you can see here we've got an AEOS either side, again pointing directly at the bride and groom, that were hidden by the flowers, so you couldn't see them. The AEOS on the left was obviously less powerful than the one on the, you know, you basically got to got to balance in terms of where you've got light coming in from. So the one on the right was more powerful. And then here, this is us getting all of the room details. So, you know, you run in and you're trying to quickly get everything, and we are standing on the side of the room where there is no light. And you can see that between Brent and I is an AEOS 2 Pro on a stand, and we literally are using it as fill light.
Yeah, for those flowers.
Yeah,
and stuff.
for the flowers. So the light on the flower on the image below is only, well, it's not only, it's basically very much in shadow. So we will run in to do the details with a Neo and an AEOS, and we'll just run around with it quite quickly. So in terms of the cake cuts at Ashridge, it's a huge event. You know, the bride and groom disappear, they come down the stairs, and then the cake's often there where they get married, and it's dark now, it's nighttime, and it's even darker than ever. So we basically have one AEOS directly, so where the top photo, top left, there will be an AEOS at this side lighting them directly, and then there's another AEOS to mirror image again of them on the image underneath as they're walking across, because we need to get both angles. So then we direct the light that's lighting the bottom left image. That light then just gets turned to where the cake is.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're always having to think, like, what's coming next, and this is what, with the lights, we are literally doing that. We're turning them physically, we're turning them up, down, we're changing the white balance.
And I think our objective here is that because they're entering from the very top of the Great Hall and coming all the way down the stairs to where the cake is, we want to get all of those opportunities both in film and photography. So we essentially have to illuminate their path of where they're going to walk.
Yeah.
And actually the two AEOSs do that no problem, because the one AEOS is just doing the staircase and one from the other side, and then it's illuminating them and the cake when we turn it around. So actually two lights have been able to get us an enormous amount of quantity for what becomes their grand entry and cake cut.
And then this was set up, sometimes people have the cake either in the main room where they eat, or even in a little anteroom behind. And here there is a whole video about this setup, so if you're interested I would watch it. But fundamentally the AEOS that's near Brent and I is the one that is lighting the couple.
Yeah.
Then we've got another AEOS 2 Pro that's lower, that is lighting the cake. And we always like cakes with side lighting because they need light and shadow to actually show all the detail. And then sometimes, and not always, or nearly always, to get a clean cake shot, where possible we put a light behind to give some separation, exactly like we did with the bride. We put some light behind, and we always use a Neo for that, often on a stand, just to give it a little bit of rim lighting. If you've got room, we sometimes use two Neos behind, and we're just lighting the rim of each.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then first dance, I've left the black and white wide in there. Normally they would actually, so this is where I used to put speed lights. That's the reality. But now we will use Neos or AEOSs depending on what type of dance and how big the dance floor is. We want them out as wide as possible so that they're not in shot. I'm actually going to talk to Ashridge to see if I can get them up. There is, I've realised now that there is another kind of ledge up there. That's where I'd like them, on little stands. And we're putting them there to give rim light, and then we're obviously having to add fill light. We tend to ask the DJs to turn the lights off, and you'll then find that they've got some separation and some rim lighting. We then had this particular wedding, they had loads of entertainers, Bollywood dancers, a lot, and it was so dark. So we then added two AEOSs to where the Neos were. And you can just see there Mark and Brent and Liz working, and I've just taken a shot, and there's a result shot below. See, it's just we're not trying to be creative there, it's just we need to light the dance. And then the shot to the left hand side is showing you actually how much light the red lights are giving. Yeah. Because honestly there was no light. It's a very dark room at night. And finally, where possible, depending on the bride and groom, we try to do some night shots. And we used to be faffing about with flash, honest to God, in the dark. Will we gel them? If not, we had to plan all of that in advance. Now we go out and we just work on the spot. And for the coloured shot there, we actually went through on the gels. We knew we wanted some kind of peachy warm colour, and we just stood there changing the gel until we were all like, that's nice. And then we set the lights, and I'll show you that. But on the left, that is just two AEOSs, and otherwise pitch well, there was, you know, it makes it look like that lamp above them's quite bright. Trust me, there was pretty much zero light coming out of it. Any light you see is from Rotolight. And here you've got the fountain, the same fountain that you saw a couple at earlier during the day. And we've got 2 AEOSes that were just, they didn't have a diffusion dome on or grids. They were just kind of bare light, if you like. And then there is 1 Neo on a stand behind the water and behind them. And then for this shot, so if I just switch back, that one, there's just the backlights, and then they're pretty much in silhouette, which works really beautifully for film. And then here, more for the photos, I added an extra Neo with a diffusion dome on the front just to light them a bit. So finally, this still taken from 4K film actually shows the truth of how Brent does this. I'm going to let him talk it through because it's his thing, your shot.
Yeah, so at the top of the staircase in the Great Hall are these arches, but as you can see in the bottom part of that image, there's the arches are nice and, well, the central arch is nice and clean and the other 2 arches are not, and they've got those doors there. And so all we're doing is we've got the AEOSs there, we've gelled them to a nice orangey colour that's matching those little lanterns at the top of the arches. And what I do is that I basically film it in 4K and I film the first scene. You know, Mark and Liz are great with getting the bride and groom to direct because it's quite a far distance to the other side, so they go around and people can stand either side of that central arch and gather, you know, the rest of the bridal party, and we just get them to do something in that central arch, a bit of a cheersy, have a kiss, whatever, and then we whip them out and we get the next bunch in, a couple of groomsmen and bridesmaids, get them to dance around and again do it again. And all I'm doing in post is I'm just replicating those across 3 different frames and dragging it and cropping it and pulling them apart so that they represent the 3 arches as they are, but with a different pattern or different activity going on in that. And once we've got that perfect, it actually looks great on film. It's the whole bridal party dancing at the top of the stairs. And because it's in 4K, I then take a still from that, give that to Kate, and she's able to deliver a still from...
Or stills. We just go frame by frame,
yes.
And I'm like, oh yeah, great. Yeah. Take that.
They're doing this, they're doing that,
yeah.
Or someone's having a kiss or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to do. But I think the speed of this is Kate and I, as you say, we like to deliver something that's a little bit more creative and a bit more fun for them. And just taking the 2 AEOSs up there and being able to gel them very, very quickly and see them by what we want. It's just so fast. And I've got a tripod on the other side, just filming it and making sure that we've got a clean frame, and then we switch them around.
But we used to do this only for photography and with flash.
Yeah.
So you imagine how that's evolved now to be able to
do that into moving film,
which is it's much more effective. Okay, gosh, look at the time. We don't need to rush off, but if any of you got questions, fire away. So I hope we've managed to give you a bit of a background into how we use them at weddings, why we use them at weddings, and why we love them so much. Because, you know, it's just been a real shift for us in the last 6 months, hasn't it? Massive change.
It has, and we would rather take more kit with us than less. And historically, we were taking a lot of stuff in the car, and so, you know, the AEOSs and the Neos in their fantastic bags and pull bags. Putting that into the car as part of our whole package is so much more. Right,
Kenneth. We primarily do use the diffusion domes because they're great, but we do also have the big R90 softbox, which is great for beautiful soft light, talking heads, that kind of thing, and so barn doors, grids, and I know, and Rod's here, there's a very exciting thing in production that we cannot wait for, which is all about diffusing that light in an incredibly intelligent way, which will allow you to change from hard to soft light very very, very quickly, and I think that's going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I think for some of the longer weddings where we know exactly how it's going to play out, and perhaps the bride and groom have asked for a whole lot of setups with friends and stuff like that, then setting up the R90 in a particular area that we know we can kind of dedicate to just knocking out these couple pictures of all their guests or whatever. That's also quite an easy setup for us.
Yeah. So yes, we do. Any other questions, anyone? No? Okay. So keep an eye on the YouTube channel, because I know that Rotolight are going to start adding the content that we shot at Ashridge.
There's a lot more detail in that. There's a lot more detail in showing the behind the scenes of where the lights were positioned, and in our explanation we talk about why we positioned the lights where we did, and then show the results both for film and for photography.
Yeah, so pleasure, Kenneth. I'm glad it has been useful. And just to again reiterate to everybody, whilst we totally rely on them for weddings, I shoot all my boudoir now with them. Food photography, fantastic. Obviously, kind of commercial corporate work. Yeah, they're just incredibly versatile. So also, if you've got any, as I said, really technical questions that you want answering, if you can't find the information on the Rotolight site, then do reach out to Rod, because he really will answer them. Yeah, so thanks for joining us. Just give if you haven't given them a go, give them a go, because that's the best thing you can always do. So good night, everybody, and have a great weekend. We're off to another wedding.
Thanks.